Hey, everyone. Well, welcome again, guys, to part 3 of our 4-part Black History Month series hosted by Extension's African American and Black Employee Resource Group. I'm Danielle Hairston-Green. I'm the Institute Director for Human Development and Relationships with UW-Madison Division of Extension, and I'm also the chairperson for the African American Black Employee Resource Group. Our purpose is to serve as a resource for and foster current and future African American Black colleague success by offering them opportunities to support and participate in programming, providing collegial support, encouraging belonging, and raising a collective voice related to issues that impact employees' ability to thrive, both personally and professionally. This year, we are co-hosting this series with the Entrepreneurs of Color support team, incorporating Black history into extension programming and sharing stories, research, and vibrant discussions. The Entrepreneurs of Color support team was formed in 2019 with the mission of supporting wealth creation through entrepreneurship within communities of color. They focus on expanding knowledge of BIPOC business ownership, developing educational programs, and working with community organizations and individuals with a shared mission. You will learn more about who they are during this series and ways that their work resonates with Black history. So why is Black history relevant to extension programming today? Well, in more ways than you may imagine, and while this series is focusing on the intersection of Black history and Black business, there are numerous intersections that directly apply to extension, striving to be an anti-racist institution, and in a wide array of programming such as organizational development, financial education, health and well-being, land stewardship, and farming. So before we move on to our program, I would like to first acknowledge our leadership for AABERG. Rick Mills serves as our secretary. Catherine Bird-Smock serves as our members and events committee chair. Eva Terry is our treasurer. James Bowling serves as our committee chair for retention and recruitment. And there is a shared leadership for our professional development team. And that is with Jenny Abel, Randy Zogbaum, Heather Quackenboss, Aaron Conway, and Monica Lobenstein. And then finally, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge this week in Black history. Audre Lorde was born on February 18, 1934. She was a self-described Black lesbian, mother, warrior, poet. Audre Lorde dedicated both her life and her creative talent to confronting and addressing injustices of racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia. Lorde was born in the New York City to West Indian immigrant parents. In 1972, she met her longtime partner, Francis Clayton. She also began teaching as poet in residence at Tougaloo College. Her experience with teaching and pedagogy, as well as her place as a Black queer woman in white academia, went on to inform her life and work. Lorde's contribution to feminist theory, critical race studies, and queer theory intertwined her personal experiences with broader political aims. She's articulated early on the intersections of race, class, and gender in canonical essays such as "The Master's Tool Will Not Dismantle the Master's House." If you would like to learn more about Audre Lorde, please visit AABERG's SharePoint site and click on our calendar. And if you are visiting us today, I will share more information in the chat box. Remember that your feedback is important to us, and we will provide a link to a survey in the chat box as we close out our session today. I will now turn it over to Mr. Rajan Hall.
Sorry. Hey, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Rajan Hall. I am a second-year MSW student at the University of Madison and the researcher or podcast host for In Our Words podcast and a research assistant for Black Business Owners Speak Wisconsin. And I will be having this presentation today with my colleague and friend, Diana Hammer. So if you wanted to introduce yourself, Diana.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. I am a community development educator in Fond du Lac County.
Yeah, definitely. I was pretty sure we're going to be sharing our presentation today, right, Diana? Or are we just gonna?
Either way, yeah, you cue me.
Yeah. So just to begin as an intro, as Madam C.J. Walker eloquently states, I want you guys to understand that your first duty is to humanity. I want others to look at us and see that we care not just about ourselves, but about others. And as we celebrate Black History Month, I would like to give you all a friendly reminder that Black History Month starts January 1st and ends December 31st. Given the importance of this month, I would like to honor and highlight the Black trailblazers who paved the way for this conversation, for this space, for this opportunity to be free of restrictions and limitations as a community and country, even though a lot of those limitations and restrictions still exist and they just look a little different. A lot of times we get distracted by the statistics, and very rarely do we actually listen to the actual voices of our targeted community. When these voices and real life experiences matter, the truth is Black business owners are essential to Black business owners are essential to the economic growth and development of this country. And my obligation today, or our obligation today, is to deliver you a more holistic understanding of the Black business owner. And I would like to show the thing if we can share that with everyone, share our screen.
Sure, the intro slides
Yes.
coming up.
Great. So I would like to just share this quote here. Just follow your dream. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. Don't let anyone stop you from doing what you want to do. You can let anybody stop you. You have to have a firm mind. You have to be focused, concentrate, because you concentrate on you and you'll achieve and you will conquer. That is a direct quote from our research experience. So I have a lot of quotes for you today. And as Marco Bizzari so eloquently states, diversity and inclusion, which are the real grounds for creativity, must remain at the center of what we do. As I think about my role as an MSW student who focuses primarily on policy and administrative work, my viewpoint regarding diversity and inclusion helps me shape my professional identity. And as a primary research assistant, I quickly learned that thriving communities possess and can readily access key economic building blocks, such as jobs, support for new businesses, and despite a robust economy, some of the individuals face many barriers to employment that include, but not limited to, additional training, access to a driver's license, entering the workplace environment that does not embrace diverse talent. In addition to the support of a strong local economy, like I said before, it requires the inclusion of Black entrepreneurs and small business owners. With that being said, we'll get a little bit more further into the purpose of the project. And Diana, would you like to start with, how we have gotten to where we are today?
Sure, yeah, I'll stop sharing for a sec. So my entry point into this work was when I didn't know it at the time, but when I met Tracy Robinson, who had started the nonprofit Fit Oshkosh in Oshkosh. The whole point of the nonprofit was to teach racial literacy in a pretty white area of rural Wisconsin. So that was a really brave thing to do. And I started attending those book reads and trainings just for my own personal self. I was doing it as a volunteer, and then I started volunteering more with Fit and really started to recognize that I had been in a dead end with my own learning about race. As a white person, I felt pretty educated on things, but I'm white, what can I do? And I hadn't realized that I was really stuck. So Tracy kind of blew open the cul-de-sac of my guilt and just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And let me see that there is a way forward through all the training and education I got at Fit Oshkosh. There is a way forward. I do have white privilege, and I can start to really use that and unleash that in ways that will make a difference for people of color and white people too. So as I was working through that personal journey of what do I do with my whiteness, Tracy was looking for a peer group. She was one of the only Black business owners, even Black nonprofit leaders that she knew, and was being told by economic development professionals in the area that when she asked, like, what do you have going for Black business owners or people of color? They said, well, we don't have any. And they tell that to her face. So clearly they did have one who was interested, and she thought, that's not right. I know there must be others. So she pulled together the Regional People of Color Business Association and invited me to come to that inaugural meeting, which was a huge honor. And that's when I started calling this work because Mia was not in her position in Outagamie or Winnebago County yet. And it really, when I think about Black business owners, it really does make sense to think about that as a regional situation just for the scale of it right now in rural Wisconsin. So I began supporting the business association as they were convening to meet each other, to form a peer group and to talk about what would be additive, what would be beneficial, what would help them grow as leaders, as business leaders and their companies. Not all of them were in nonprofits, but what would be useful there. And around the same time, Dean Carl Martin then opened up the innovation grants for the first time. I see you on here, Carl, so thank you for that. Joseph Malawal, who used to be a community development educator in the western part of the state, and I put together a proposal with Tracy to see if we could interview Black business owners in Northeast Wisconsin. I knew I didn't know many, I knew a handful, I didn't know many, and I figured this would be really helpful for us to just learn, like, first of all, so two goals, right? Networking, get Extension and Fit Oshkosh in front of people doing this work, and then also really, what are their stories? Why are they here doing their business? What's been helpful? What's not been helpful? What can we do? Sometimes the answer is stay out of their hair. That's cool. I want to know that. But also, I bet they've got some skills and are doing some neat things. So let's find out about that. So we got the grant. We were able to set it up so that Fit Oshkosh could hire the research assistant. And this is where my mind was blown again by working with Tracy in an inclusive hiring process. Since we weren't having to follow university hiring rules, we could do things like ask for a video as the first step rather than a cover letter and a resume. Give us a video, I think we said 3 minutes or less, and tell us in the video why you will build trust with Black business owners, or why they will trust you with their stories, because we were going to be asking some sensitive things. And then from there, we did a more traditional process where people brought their resumes to the interview. And in that process, we had the very good fortune to meet Rejan and hire him to do this work. So I can pause there, Rejan, or keep going?
Up to you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just kind of talk about my beginning there. It was an amazing experience. So in the beginning, I had no idea what to expect when starting this journey as a research assistant. And what I can say is I always did believe one day that I'd be in a position to create change within my community, a community where over the years during my own interpersonal development with life and education, I've grown to comprehend the amount of challenges, work discrimination, systemic racism that occurs so often to people that look like me. Years ago, I was given the chance to put those aspirations into motion, and I challenged myself to take full advantage of that opportunity. And as a new research assistant and community member, which I feel is which is important to mention there, I was tasked to build, create, and maximize relationships with 50 Black business owners. Throughout that time frame when we were doing that, we actually interviewed one-on-one 48 Black business owners because there was just a deadline and whatnot. But majority of the entrepreneurs that I was told to interview would be strangers. And this process allowed me time to grow, learn, and craft my approach, which soon would be pivotal to the success of this entire program. And as a young entrepreneur myself, I quickly learned the importance of self-resilience and how essential that was for Black entrepreneurs and business owners. But with that being said, the purpose of the research was to attempt to understand the needs and experiences of African-American business owners in Milwaukee and northeastern Wisconsin. I say attempt because I think it's important to conceptualize that this work is an ongoing journey and there will never be a one-size-fits-all result. Specifically, we explored in-depth understanding regarding hardships faced and overcome by Black business owners. Some of the challenges we explored. Further, we're understanding where access to business startup, like Diana said, growth resources, effective strategies implemented to overcome some of those hardships, the conversation around the importance of supporting social circle, networking strategies, and community interaction. The ultimate goals, which stands even more clear for me today, is to build education around effective networking and strategies and connect entrepreneurs who may have similar business ventures and programming, but operate in different counties. But most of the time, which I've come to find out, are relatively not far in distance from each other. And, they may have not know each other personally. So truth is, there is a fair amount of business support programs available in each county, which we found. But the challenge that has arisen, and I'm speaking directly from, talking with these business owners, but the challenge that arises is the time commitment, the fees to be a part of these programs, competitive application processes, and the timeframes that program is even available with the deadlines. It's essential to understand as advocates and aspiring allies that these program stipulations are just other ways of hindering the growth of Black business owners. Historically, the Black business starts from the ground, and meaning there's a very little support financially, mentally, and the lack of mentorship in the community. So the time that Black business owners have available for anything outside of growing their service typically focuses around family and building their community, which is a prominent motivation for almost everyone I've had the privilege to sit down with and interview. So where do we find the time and mental capacity to be a part of extensive programming that typically doesn't even focus on our specific businesses? The answer is you don't. Just a simple answer, especially because the majority of Black business owners hold daily jobs, 9 to 5s, 8 to 4s, or whatever that may be, to fund their business. So let me remind you, there's only 24 hours in a day. And that's just the honest truth. My personal favorite theme that I have heard so far throughout this experience is the amount of resilience. And I've spoke about that a little bit, or mentioned that's needed to sustain a Black business. I believe it has a direct connection to the experiences Black entrepreneurs encounter on a day-to-day basis. Resilience speaks to the natural emotional and physical strength Black business owners historically exhibit. And resilience also plays an essential role in the continued success and knowledge gained in the Black community surrounding business ownership. So Black entrepreneurs typically foster resilience by being intentional with their skill training, communication, mindfulness, stress management, building of social networks, but some aspects around sustaining their business can be out of their control. This research has provided a deeper understanding around the importance of diversity and inclusion. As a young entrepreneur myself, I quickly learned the importance of self-resilience from this group that I've been able to work with, and how essential it is to apply that strength to every facet of life. As I reflect on my experiences so far, resilience has played a significant role. I believe often, a person's childhood experiences play a role in their psychological development. We tend to become creatures of habit and seek to please those around us that are responsible for our health and wellness. And that we begin to respond in the way that our parents reinforce certain behaviors. We have something in the chat here for you guys to look at if you'd like. But for our parents to reinforce certain behaviors, and the way that we see the world is intertwined with that exposure that we have during that time period. And I feel this is important to mention because it really provides a holistic understanding regarding the background of the Black entrepreneur and business owner. For example, Black youth have experienced traumatic events, typically have experienced multiple traumas that can lead to emotional upset, difficulties with self-regulation, problems with relating to others or forming attachments, regression or loss of previously acquired skills, and attention to academic difficulties. Most importantly, I feel it's vital to understand that as an outsider looking in, that depending on the severity of a child's situation, an effective support system is critical to buffering against the harmful effects of traumatic experiences. Understanding how Black people heal in collective, comprehensive, and dynamic ways really speaks to respecting that in order for marginalized communities to heal, that we have to be willing to treat a range of systemic issues, or understand different life circumstances, respect different ways of being in order to fully be present, and provide Black professionals effective support systems that fit their ways of learning, teaching, and growing. And, within our first thing that we did, our first meeting here earlier this month, I asked everyone to, as aspiring allies, to what is your why? Why are you interested in learning more about the Black entrepreneur, and what are the ways that you are being intentional with your support of the Black professional and entrepreneur? So I again ask, everyone here today to really dive deeper into that conversation and that question, but we'll leave that for another time. Transitioning to, I guess, the podcast, which we've talked about a little bit more, is called In Our Words, Black Business Owners Speak, Wisconsin.
Can I interrupt just for a quick second?
Yeah.
So I want to kind of tie this all together. So in 2019, we did the Northeast Wisconsin interviews, where you interviewed 48 people in Brown, Outagamie, Winnebago, and Fond du Lac counties. And then Angie Allen in Milwaukee County got 2 more Dean's grants plus Greater Milwaukee Foundation funding to replicate and expand that work in Milwaukee County, and to look more specifically at networks, like you were mentioning earlier. One of the first things we realized in Northeast Wisconsin was the business owners that Rajan talked to didn't really know each other the way I had assumed they might. And so at the end of that summer, Rajan was the person they all had in common. So when I wanted to call and follow up and say, hey, thanks for doing this study, let me know if you have any business development needs, happy to keep talking, I always had to start that with, hey, I'm a coworker of Rajan's, and then they would keep talking to me, but otherwise it was going to be a quick hang up. So I've learned to lead with his name when I do calls. And anyway, so then in Milwaukee, though, it's a different situation, and we're focusing on an existing network of business owners who we know already know each other. And he interviewed them using a lot of the same questions. And then Tessa Conroy and Deanna Schneider are adding a network analysis component in there too, so we can get some metrics around what does that network, how do you measure it, and then what does that mean for their business outcomes. And that's what the Milwaukee study is. Those interviews are done, the network analysis is happening, and out of that came the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Can we share the presentation again, just to provide some visuals, some of the responses?
Yeah, like what we asked and what people said?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, these are motivations on why you started a business: to create a legacy for my kids, to pass wealth on to future generations, to benefit the community, to have independence, to influence by my parents and other relatives. I think it's very important to understand that motivations that I've seen so far are very similar from a statewide thing, even though we've only done interviews in Northeastern Wisconsin and Milwaukee. From the one-on-one interviews that I was able to be a part of, had the privilege to be a part of, I like to say, with these business owners, a lot of these motivations came up more than just one time. These are what we have found to be some of the most important motivations for some of the business owners. So hopefully that helps anyone or whatever. So access to resources, how do you finance your business? Again, these are some of the responses that we've gotten from Northeastern Wisconsin participants. And again, I've had this past year the privilege to interview another 25 Black business owners in the greater Milwaukee area. And I would say, again, these are very similar to the responses that I've heard from that specific group. So, yeah, we're just going down the line, and, so I don't have to say it 2 times or another time. That's, again, these are just some of the responses we've gotten with, did you work with a bank or credit union? And just to give you a specific quote, or not a specific quote, but an understanding of what I've heard throughout this podcast experience is, no, a lot of the times these Black business owners are starting their business with their own money, and they're not looking to, go to ask a bank for a credit or a loan, because there's a chance or a stigma around being redlined before you even step into the institution itself, or you step in and you can see the looks on the faces of the tellers there that before you even ask for that loan, you already have gotten your no. And, and it's really important because we talk about that even, before and prior, after the podcast, and hearing that. And I think it's important for a lot of people to understand that, you still have to give yourself a chance. And if you don't give yourself that chance, before you even ask, then you don't even, I guess you don't even give yourself that chance. You don't, if you didn't ask or sit down and let them run the numbers, you don't even give yourself that chance. But I do think that a lot of entrepreneurs are looking to aid that with other younger entrepreneurs in the area.
Can I add one additional fact that stood out to me? I had the opportunity to listen to the audio recordings of Rajan's interviews. People consented to that, and then we had those transcribed professionally. So we have both audio and now written transcripts. And in one of the interviews, I remember he asked, how did you fund your business? Was it, with an investment or your own savings? And when he said savings, she was like, not even. I took money and I used it right away. Like it didn't even hit the savings account. She was like, there wasn't even that much time to save anything. And it just reinforces what a shoestring people are on. Like any little bit they get, they're putting right back in and, hopefully feeding themselves along the way, but there's no margin there at all. And then another piece, what you're saying about how people don't even go to the bank, that's something Tessa Conroy has looked into specifically with women, but I think there's much more to say about that happening with Black entrepreneurs too, called self-rationing of credit, where you just assume you won't get it, so you don't ask. And there's some research that shows that people who think that may still get the loan. If they had gone, they would have qualified. But there's also people we talked to who did get a loan or have gotten loans, maybe not at startup, but further down as they were growing their business. And they even said many things that indicated they don't want loans, they don't like loans, they didn't think they would get one, even though they already had been financed previously. So that's a really deep attitude, deep belief that banks really aren't for me. That's really not a thing I can do. Oh yeah, and here's more quotes representing these same thoughts.
We have a comment in our comment section right now. Some families have a strong negative feeling about getting in debt, so that can cause people to be very hesitant about going to a bank. Very true. Very stigma around that for sure. And Diane, I know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's white middle class business culture to assume that you're getting a loan for your business. Like that's very typical, especially if you have something that needs a storefront with a lot of employees, like a restaurant. A loan is just basic life. You're going to have that for a long time. Or if you don't have a loan, you're going to have a line of credit that you're drawing on pretty often. Mm-hmm. So that's just a really different way to approach business development that we all need to notice. Go ahead, Rajan.
Yeah, and I'd like to mention, I think that I've learned from you or learned from this experience that you mentioned a lot of the times is that, once, a business, you use your own money to start this business. And usually a lot of the times that money is, that you're going to get from your business, the equity built in that business will be used for your savings to continue to grow your business. But an amazing dynamic that the Black business owners has is the idea that, since we're coming from the ground up, our biggest interest with the money that we're gaining is to put it back into our community, and not to withhold that information and that, that knowledge of building your business and the money that you're building with the business from your community, because we understand how important it is for our community to continue to grow. And I think it's just incredible to see that, the fact that you're using all of your money, you don't have much, difference there for yourself. And the money that you do have saved, you're financing community events and putting it back into the community where you may not be getting much out of it yourself. So I thought that was amazing to see from a lot of Black business owners that how important the growth of the Black community is. So sometimes you're not really focusing on yourself. You're a little bit more about the entire group dynamic, for sure. And this is just a question that we've asked within our interview is, what is it like being a Black business owner in a predominantly white area? And it is a little bit different. We did see a little bit different responses for the greater Milwaukee area. And the simple answer to that for everyone to understand is that there is a higher percentage of Black entrepreneurs and the Black community in general in the Milwaukee area compared to Northeastern Wisconsin. So the amount of support that Black business owners have, or representation of Black business owners is increased in the greater Milwaukee area compared to Northeastern Wisconsin, where I know specifically, we looked in the Fond du Lac area. There's, I think, a handful of Black business owners, and I actually just met with one of them that was a part of the interview the other day, and she was basically saying that, there's other than me and a couple other people in the Fond du Lac area, that's it. So where does the support come from when systemic racism and the lack of support for Black business owners, it just isn't there. And you are trying to be that change agent for that community. So it's very daunting work, honestly.
So two comments there. One is, I've learned that the more we ask and try to find Black business owners doing this, the more we find. And many of them are really hidden. They're working out of their garage or their kitchen or their basement, doing it part-time, maybe not even really calling themselves business owners because it's the side hustle, it's the weekend barbecue that, yeah, I'm always the one people ask to cook ribs at the picnic or whatever. But they're doing it. They're exchanging goods and services for money and being entrepreneurial. And so there are a lot more than are easy to find because they have a storefront and they're advertising and they're out and about. And I think that's true, at least in Northeast Wisconsin. And then regarding this question, one of the things that really stood out to me listening to the whole interviews and then hearing this question in particular is the tremendous amount of reframing and psychological support that the business owners do to stay present with themselves as a Black business owner, being very visible in their communities. And the one who said, I just don't think about it, also had one of the most blatant experiences of racism to share with us, where it was very clear he had been discriminated against for race, no question. And then a few minutes later, Rajan asked this question, I don't think about it. And like, wow, he can't, like, I'm putting this on him, right? So my impression hearing that is he probably can't think about it because he has to show up to work every day, no matter what. It doesn't matter what anyone else is going to think about him or what anyone else is going to do or how many other barriers he'll find. His job is to get up and do the job. And that's a lot of energy going into that mental work than it is than a white business owner would need to. If I was in business, that wouldn't be on my mind most days. And I could channel that energy into other successes economically. If I have to talk myself into just opening the door that day, that's a different thing.
Yeah. So just to kind of bring it back to the podcast, unless you want to speak on the impact, Diana.
No, we've come further than this slide shows now, so you can tell us where we're at.
Yeah, so we are finally, within the 2 years of our research, able to launch our podcast session. And within our group of, the people that I've had as supervisors during my MSW program, we were really trying to find a way that we could highlight the voices of the Black business owners. So we have someone in the chat saying, where can we find the podcast? We will get to that. But if you have to leave, I will say it's called In Our Words Podcast. So you can find it now on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, the accounts that we were able to create. I will talk about that a little further, but you cannot necessarily listen to the podcast just yet, but I will say it's very powerful and impactful. And I think it's going to be great for the community. But right now we're just building up anticipation for the podcast. We are scheduling 10 podcasts, but we started at the end of January and we are on podcast 6. So we're podcast 10 is scheduled to be done by the end of February. And then we're going to be releasing a lot of different content of snippets of the podcast, but I do post those on the promotional pages that we created. And then we also have created a Black business owners private networking account on Facebook where Black business owners are able to connect personally and talk about things that maybe aren't being talked about, or given the space to talk about, and it's a safe space for them. But the purpose, so you can find us in Our Words podcast on all those major platforms. And once we are able to, once we're done with the 10 podcasts, it will be posted on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube page. It will be under In Our Words podcast. So that will be coming sometime in the middle of March or at the end of March. So please be on the lookout for that. And then, so the purpose of the podcast is to build stronger network relationships, like we talked about, that increase participant business and network overall success. To do this, I've created multiple social media platforms, like I said, to highlight each entrepreneur's business and community involvement, while also creating a private networking page where Black entrepreneurs are able to market opportunities such as jobs, events, available community resources. This creates a very crucial dynamic around relationship building and Black equity being distributed intentionally in the community. Diversity and inclusion is the center of my work and as an MSW student, and creates a unique perspective regarding entrepreneurship. So when I think about diversity from a policy setting, I think about the many ways in which policymakers must show up every day. The ways I have to show up as a podcast host, hosting such a specific, culturally specific podcast, show up every day, and things we keep in like our own mental state. My physical appearance, my office space, and how I'm creating a inclusive and safe space for these entrepreneurs to talk about their experiences. And I think about the standardized principles and behaviors that we must adhere to, that I must adhere to be ethically appropriate to work with others. And as a community member and advocate for the advancement of Black entrepreneurs, having sound guidelines and foundations has helped this research project's success. So the mission of the podcast is to provide a more holistic understanding of the Black entrepreneur in the state of Wisconsin. And this page and platform was built for aspiring entrepreneurs, specifically youth, who can benefit from these real life Black experiences. It's some of the things that I've found commonly used is, relates back to the tabooness around seeking help, and support in the Black community, and to seize these cycles of trauma that decimate, Black professionals and communities. We must, I firmly believe that we must first incorporate the Black experience as a narrative approach to healing for marginalized communities. And I believe it's crucial to offer a safe environment for Black entrepreneurs and professionals to share their stories of pain, and like I said, resilience, and receive strength from advice, from another entrepreneur that represents where they're coming from, connection and belonging that's necessary for them to grow. I think it's this journey is a little bit deeper than a lot of people may actually would like to admit or comprehend or can comprehend. And I think about my role as the podcast host, recognizing and responding to the impact of those traumatic experiences, which from personal knowledge does push Black professionals to feeling like an imposter. In comparison, I guess, traumatic experiences directly affect their performance and growth within their respective occupations and businesses. It is essential that as leaders here and people that have available resources that can support this group, we recognize and respond to the challenges and adversities Black entrepreneurs and professionals encounter. It's essential to acknowledge these facts when attempting to incorporate the beliefs, the values, the competencies, the ideas, while respecting that people are the storytellers of their own experiences in life. And as a leader in this community and aspiring entrepreneur, I make it my primary obligation to be respectful understanding, and non-blaming, as I also make it my mission to search for answers to questions I don't know the answers to, while maintaining a stance of curiosity, even as a Black entrepreneur myself, which is also a crazy dynamic. Beyond that, understanding the challenges my people face each day is, of the utmost importance to me. And I would like to mentally be there for the Black community and professional on their journey to help map out the ride, no matter direction of their own interests. The overall goal is including race narratives to free the Black professional for the constant constraints and internalized racism to become a source of support.
So I'm going to add some programming layers to what you just said, Rajan. That was beautiful and so important. And what you're doing really does feel sacred, because listening to these conversations, we had told people initially, 30 minutes, and in and out. Rajan was with some of these folks for 90 minutes, 2 hours. Like once they got rolling, they really told it all. So it's really heavy and special to be in these places and these conversations. And so the kind of the extension layer here is what we learned from Northeast Wisconsin, that people didn't really have a deep peer network of other business owners. They had a lot of tight connections with spouses and family, but sometimes even the family or extended family had never been entrepreneurs. They didn't think that was really possible, not really worth your time or money, don't understand why you're doing this. So they had a lot to overcome sometimes even with their in-group. And if you've heard us talk about this in other places, we've used a community engaged scholarship approach to this, where, working with Tracy right from the beginning. And then as we've grown these other components, really checking in with the participants. Is this making sense to you? Would this be useful for you? What could we do now that would be additive? So next week, Mia is going to talk about the Color Bold Business Association that grew out of the Regional People of Color Business Association and is keeping going in Northeast Wisconsin as a result. And then in Milwaukee, the point of continuing the network and the networking that was already happening, and giving folks from both regions a chance to meet each other and know each other. So while they're doing a podcast for the benefit of anonymous public, they're also creating a bond with each other and with Rajan, which hopefully will serve them personally and their businesses as this all grows. And it puts them correctly in the driver's seat and in the teacher's chair, or however, whatever metaphor works, because white economic development in Wisconsin doesn't really understand Black business ownership. The more I hear about this and kind of compare with the foot in both worlds kind of now, it's a totally different economic landscape that Black business owners are working in. And until majority economic development can really understand that and adapt how we work with business owners to make it effective for what they need, Black business owners are the experts. They're the ones who know, and they've got real skills that they're using to make things happen all the time. And it's a different set of skills and it's a different set of challenges that they face than other business owners in the state. So that's the meta around the podcast.
Thanks, Diana. Yeah, I guess to kind of go off of what Diana was just saying again, a lot of what has kind of really shown, what has really helped me continue this work mentally has just to see, if you were here last week, Tessa Conroy spoke about the growth of the Black business owner in the state. When we first started this research, we didn't know how many Black business owners there were. I think Diana, you and Tracy were asking me that. You're like, how many are there really? And I think even at that time, given everything that's going on in the world that we live in right now, I think that we've seen a significant, in which Tessa has, said within her stats or statistics last week, we've seen the growth of the Black business owner, and in the exposure and them putting themselves out there for the world to see that this is my business and this is what we're doing, and we require support, but not support to where you're saying I helped you get here, but natural support of just I want to see you get to the next level and I want to see you be sustained as a Black business owner. So I have, within the position that I am in, I've been able to be a part of that growth and see it firsthand that it's actually happening. and that, you know, with all the resources that are being put out and distributed to specifically Black business owners, that it just shows that with the correct support financially, mentally, emotionally, or just people showing that, you know, it can be as little as following the Black business owner on social media, you know, and showing consistent support of liking their pictures, resharing their pictures, commenting. You know, I do that now for just, you know, my personal pages and the In Our Words podcast, and just to see their reactions. You know, that's all. It's sometimes the little things, and I think a lot of times we get distracted by thinking that they need these extensive programming, when it's just, you know, it's the physical support that we can provide that takes 1 second or 2 seconds to do. Yeah, and then Mia, I had a video that maybe we can share right now. You can make it bigger, that'd be great, I think.
Looking for a new podcast? Look no further. In Our Words, Black Entrepreneurs Speak Wisconsin, coming soon. Like and follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at In Our Words Podcast. Can't wait to see you. Tap in soon.
But he said you gotta let those people do what they're really good at too, and when you put it together, the outcome is gonna be even better. To assume that y'all not skilled, y'all not the next leaders, people, citizens of the world, right? So I don't believe it. I know I didn't.
Looking for.
So I hope you guys really liked that. We have so much more content that we're releasing on our pages. I think it's been amazing to see that our research and the themes that we've been able to pull out from the transcribing of these one-on-one interviews, that the themes actually has helped us connect the entrepreneurs through the podcast. Because like we said, each participant is from a separate county and they don't know each other. I mean, from what I know, they don't know each other. So to see them come together and connect so naturally and organically, it just shows that that's a natural thing Black business owners have. But because of the sort of world we live in, if I can say, in a sense, it creates a natural, you know, distance that we have to do everything by ourselves. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the times, all it takes is to create something like that, you know, and to see their reaction to just talking about and having the conversation around some of these topics that they don't necessarily have on a day-to-day basis, and that we aren't having, obviously, because everyone's kind of spread out. So they are to come together, especially, you know, a lot of the ones that are coming from Northeastern Wisconsin, driving an hour just to speak about their experiences. It shows how important that is to just talk about what is going on, and to talk about that and their historical experiences or their last business ventures. That also, I've heard that pushes them to actually, you know, think about things that maybe they haven't actually conceptualized themselves. You know, they're like, wow, like you asked me that question and I thought about that, but it actually, to talk about that and for you to, you know, really push for me to dive a little bit deeper, that actually is motivating me to go, when I get back to my business, I'm gonna do that. You know, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I don't really need, you know, you know, money's always great. Everyone's, you know, whatever that is, that's always great. But a lot of times it's really just the natural organic things that you can do to support these business owners. So, I mean, that's all. So I would love if everyone could, you know, go and support the pages. And then once we have the podcast out, you know, support the podcast. I do think that the things that we'll be talking about from a standpoint of the things that we'll be talking about on that podcast would help educators or any aspiring allies learn a little bit more holistically about the Black business owner and what is needed to help grow and support this specific community. I want to give space for anyone that has any more questions.
Are you thinking about expanding at all to other parts of the state? Or, you're
That
on
would-
the eastern part, so I'm curious. I'm on the western part.
That would be, I think we've had some conversations about that, but I don't really do the the funding for all of that, or the Diana could probably talk to that. I would love to. I think that
He
would be
doesn't do it yet, but that's coming.
I think that would be something that definitely should be looked into. Like, again, we have the private networking page that we created, and right now we started that over a month ago, and it's already has over 100 participants in there. So it just shows that this is something that Black business owners have wanted, and they want to be connected to. And we have not talked about yet, but we are looking to create a Black business owner networking event sometime this May, beginning of May, to where they're able to connect. It's not a pop-up shop. It's not somewhere where you're handing out business cards, but it's to connect and really see that there's other entrepreneurs out there that have similar experiences to you, and to connect with them more further than a surface level conversation. So that type of programming is being put in place. And if you, again, like, the biggest thing here is this is an entrepreneurship thing. So if you're looking to support, please go out and support that mission, please. So yeah, that would be something I would be interested in doing. So if that happens, I think it could build on what we have already.
There was at least one childcare that we've talked to. Do you remember, Rajan?
Can you say that again? I can hear you.
There's a question about childcare or daycare businesses. I remember at least one that you talked to.
For childcare or daycare experiences?
Yeah.
I think if I'm hearing your question right or whatever, that dynamic is something that happens to a lot of the Black business owners, because they have children, and given the time that they have to invest in their business and to continue growing their business, how can, that's another payment that they have, an expense that they have towards having freedom to focus on what they need to focus on. So as everyone with children know, childcare expenses and daycare expenses are very high and expensive, and to have that there too just makes it a little bit more difficult for the Black business owner, and for the business owner in general. But given what we've talked about a little bit more, it looks a little different for the Black business owner.
And this is Karen asking the question in Outagamie County, because we're going to have some daycare startup funds. Just wondering if there are any Black daycare type environments. So is there a mentorship or a support system for those that might want to start their daycares?
Their mentorship or support system
as Black entrepreneurs?
I would say there is. I don't think that I would say, from just being who I am and being able to connect with so many Black entrepreneurs, there definitely is support systems or people that are looking to grow a daycare system. I know some personally, so we can connect there to look where how we could make that happen. But specifically to our research project, I think we may have a couple in there. I would have to go back and look. I would have to go back and look at people who are in the daycare, childcare, world or scheme of business. But I would definitely say that is definitely something that needs to happen. So I love the idea.
Thank you.
Rajan will be graduating in April, so I want to give him a happy graduation applause early here, and thank him for all his work. He's been a tremendous asset to me personally and this work. So thank you, Rajan.
Thanks, Diana.
And you can share this recording with anyone who needs to see it in the School of Social Work.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for being here today and listening to our presentation around Black entrepreneurship and business ownership. It's definitely something that I'm passionate about as an entrepreneur myself, and something that I think is definitely in a stage of growth in the States. So if you're an aspiring ally or a Black entrepreneur yourself, please do what you can and find your why of why you would like to support that mission.
Thank you guys once again for joining us this afternoon. Just remember to join us for our final week in this series by clicking on the registration link in the flyer. There's another opportunity affecting change through relationship building, supporting an African-American leader and establishing the Color Bold Business Association. That's happening our final session next Wednesday. If you self-identify as African-American or Black and are interested in joining Aaerg, or consider yourself an ally and would like to strategically support the work that we are doing here, please contact Catherine Borg-Smock or visit our SharePoint site. And also a member from our professional development committee, if they haven't already, will place the link in the chat for you to complete a quick survey. The survey is extremely important to Aaerg as we use this data to help us strengthen the work that we do in supporting our African-American and Black employees and bring awareness to our allies. Thank you again, Rajan, for all of the amazing information that you shared with us. And I'll close out with this quote by Desmond Tutu. None of us comes into the world fully formed. We would not know how to think or walk or speak or behave as human beings unless we learned it from other human beings. We need other human beings in order to be human. I am because other people are. Have an amazing rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.